Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We've got about half an hour with the Minister. We're going to have a bit of a chat and hopefully some insights on the region, the Middle East, the Gulf region itself, as well as on the global energy transition and lessons we can learn from your experience. So, Minister, the country itself was started off 20, 25 years ago as a wholly, what's the word I'm looking for, oil-fired, oil-sourced, oil-generating country. And that really isn't true anymore. That's my impression.
No, that's definitely not the case now. I think we are considered a new country. I mean, if you look at the ages of countries, UAE is about 46, 47 years old as a federation. And since the establishment of the country, there wasn't a lot to build on. There was almost nothing. And we started from the oil revenues, building the country, and the founding father have always a vision about sustainability. And that vision started with reducing the flaring, for example, that started in 1990, when no one was talking about environment or reducing the flares at that time. He decided to put significant investments to reduce flaring. And since then, we started thinking about the impact of the emissions and whatever we're doing.
I think you were leading on that in the region as a whole.
No, yes. And we started by the idea of hosting IRENA and giving an example on the sustainability and the energy, especially the renewable energy. I think if you look at the prices of solar energy worldwide, you would see that for 4 times in a row that UAE have broken those records downward. Yeah. And today, the solar cost would be lower than 2.3 cents per kilowatt hour. No one was dreaming of that before we started our project.
It's really interesting, isn't it? In 2017, the IEA produced this huge renewables report, which was illustrating the extent to which renewables prices, the capital cost of renewables deployment, has collapsed. And I suppose that what we're looking at now is a huge opportunity for UAE and a lot of the countries in the region in actually rolling out far more renewables and bringing them into their energy mix.
Yes, that's the plan. The plan in our strategy is to install 44 gigawatt, minimum of 44 gigawatt by 2050. And I think the announcement, the very exciting announcement in Saudi Arabia of the 200 gigawatt is something that was not expected. Yeah. I think our countries by that time, there will be a potential to interlink even with Europe and start exchanging power. And because we have the time difference, we have the seasonality effect, and I think the whole globe could benefit from such exchange and reducing the emissions on the other sources of energy.
Now, I think one of the interesting things about it is when you start looking at it as a whole, because you're able to experiment throughout UAE at different options, try them all out, you can provide a lot of examples for a lot of other countries, for the Europeans, for the Americans. You've got if you like, the flexibility to do that.
Yes, and we tested so many models, and we have tested going 100% green or renewable, but it didn't work because the technology, as we speak, is not there, and you need to subsidize if you go with 100% renewable today. So our best option was 50-50, 50% fossil-based, 50% renewable. But even when we go fossil, we targeted the cleanest form of fossil. And we are working with many of the industrial manufacturing today on the gas turbines efficiencies to ensure that we are burning less gas to generate electricity. Decoupling water desalination from electricity generation, where we will refrain from burning gas to desal. We will instead using electricity, which is primarily in the daytime, is going to come from solar, to desalinate water. And I think all of those ideas is going to put UAE in as a front runner for that transition toward greener energy.
Because one of the things about it is if you can set up the renewables in the right way, so you've got the wind and solar substantially in place, and you've got the gas backup. The reality at the moment is that is the cleanest way to operate, because it seems to me that the fundamental problem is with trying to go 100%, is that the technological developments that are required, particularly in relation to storage, just aren't there. They're not going to be there for another 20 years or so. So this is what you're suggesting is a kind of, from what I can see, is a kind of optimal strategy for which most states would have to follow if they were trying to really deliver.
I think we've been practical. You're right. We tried a practical approach rather than just aiming high and not achieving it for a financial reason. We are targeting as well not to subsidize on this transition. So we are moving away from subsidy and trying to price even gas at the right price of gas. We think the best way to deal with that energy mix is to treat them equally. If you subsidize on gas, then you are not fair to the renewable energy. But it's not fair as well to go and subsidize the renewable energy where today it reaches CSP, the lowest in the world, 700 megawatt that we have announced recently was 7.3 cent. And I think 7.3 cent is a very good price if you compare it to the tariff here in Europe or many countries in the world. And that's with storage. That's a concentrated solar panel with around 16 to 17 hours. And the conventional PV is, as I said, around 2.3, less than 3 cents. 2.3 is the lowest bid that we received. Unfortunately, hydro, we don't have the water in the Middle East or at least in UAE to generate water from hydro, nor from wind. Wind, we tried it didn't work out. But solar, we have a prime envelope for solar, and I think that could give us enough. And the technology and the battery technologies is also improving. So we are bidding as well in the strategy on the future.
I think the solar thing is really quite interesting because if you look at the two things which seem to be happening. One is largely because of the Chinese. The price of solar panels has dropped through the floor. But in addition to Chinese, American, and European technology, what you've seen is the actual efficiency of the panels has become so much greater. So the amount of power you can extract from the light spectrum from an individual panel is increasing all the time. And I think, I suppose, from the point of view of UAE, gives you an opportunity to really make the most of these increasingly cheap and increasingly efficient panels.
This is one thing. The other thing that we are capitalizing on is to allow a law for solar rooftops to allow to spend and try spend in the R&D and try some of the windows or glass that is also generating electricity. If you go to the Middle East, you will think why they have all of this heat and why all of the buildings are glass windows.
Yeah.
And I think there is an opportunity there to use that facade for power generation. So the technology is improving, and we are becoming a test field for many of those technologies. We are enabling them. We're building R&D centers, and we are. I'm very happy that we have some of the IPs coming from the UAE when it comes to the new technologies.
Yeah, because one of the other interesting technological things is technological developments is batteries. Whilst huge grid-level storage facilities will take another 20, 30 years, what's really interesting, I think, is the ability to build storage into buildings so that they have some storage capacity. Or you see, I mean, there's the growth of solar home seating systems, which actually have some element of storage within them, so you can actually hold some power for half a day or something. And it's this sort of thing, I suspect, which is the sort of thing you can try out in UAE as well.
Yes, and that is possible. We think commercially today it's better to interlink the two. So you have the base load, you have the grid, then you connect with the grid and you try to give the grid and take from the grid. So netting, we managed to build a whole villa in a place called Masdar City, which is the first city that is going to be 100% renewable from transportation to electricity generation to everything. So we started to build those villas that are linked to the grid, but in netting they take zero. I mean, in netting, the customer will not pay anything. So he's giving the grid and then taking back from the grid. And that is a form of storage if you think about it. The grid becomes your storage, and you only take electricity from it and return it.
And that's a kind of very efficient way to operate as well, isn't it? So I suppose we should, as you are president of OPEC, we should also talk a little about the oil price. That's I suppose, solar to oil. So one of the things, I suppose, is that we've seen an increasing, the nadir was what, in 2016 when it went down to $30 a barrel, thereabouts. So we're now at around, I think I looked last week, it was about $77 a barrel, thereabouts, Brent crude. So do you have a sense of, is this a return to energy normality? We're not going to go perhaps back to 150, but this is more normal price levels?
I was hoping to avoid any question about but I think where the oil prices they are today, I think we need to go and look at the fundamentals. We need not to react, first of all. We are at a geopolitical tension cross where we are seeing the market reacts to this new information. But I think reality, if you look at the supply and demand, nothing have changed to justify such a price. So from a technical point of view, the price is not justified. It's the effect of the geopolitics. Are we concerned? Yes, we are. And are we watching? Yes, we are. Our technical team have been working day and night to analyze the market, look at the fundamentals. And again, OPEC is not alone today. It's OPEC and non-OPEC. We are a group of 24 countries, and our concern is market stability. I can assure you we have no benefit in just raising the prices, because that doesn't make sense. If we just do that, then we are hurting ourselves in the longer run. We want to have that relationship with our consumers, and we want to assure them that we will do whatever it takes to balance the market. We have a meeting coming in 1 month, and I think it's a ministerial meeting where all of us is going to come and meet. And myself, I had a phone conversation with His Excellency Khalid Al-Falih of Saudi Arabia, and I'm talking to many other ministers. So we are checking the market as we see those spikes in prices, but we need not to overreact, I think, because the market is reaching stabilization, and we want to keep that. We don't want to come and decide unilaterally, or one country, that they are going to do something alone. We want this group of countries to act together, because I think that's more assuring than just a single country acting. And I have confidence on this group that they will do the right thing. We have a historical deal together, and we managed to balance the market. It took time, but I think we achieved a very good level. Now we are going to sit together in a month's time and decide. And I would advise everyone to look at the kind of the whole year, from the beginning of the year until now, rather than just a week and say, this is the price of the year. No, it's not the price of the year. The price of the year is where it is today. And we are dealing with so many issues as well, not only the geopolitics that is associated with Iran, which is a member of OPEC. I think Venezuela and what's happening to Venezuela is also alarming, and we've been watching that. We need to have a plan that is adequately studied by the group, and I can assure you that that plan is going to target the market stability. We did not work 2 years to just leave the market and say we're not concerned anymore. The prices are at a level that we like. No, I don't think that this is the objective. The objective is market stability. It's not just to raise the prices.
Yeah, and of course, one of the troubles at the moment, as you say, is the major factor on pricing is the geopolitics. And it's geopolitics, not just the Iran issue, but as you say, Venezuela. I mean, as you say, it's very alarming. One of the concerns is the potential for sufficient instability in Venezuela, which would actually threaten most of the rest of their actual supply onto the markets, which would have a significant tightening effect. So I suppose there's also kind of broader geopolitical questions than the Iran question. Let us hope the Korean situation is hopefully positively resolved, but one can see there is a number of different things which impact. I suppose one of the difficulties of being OPEC is that you're sitting there, a lot of people think you're responsible for the oil price, but stuff happens externally which you have no responsibility for, but which affects the oil price.
And that's why historically we've been always blamed. Whenever something happened to the price, they come to us. OPEC need to fix it. And I think this group have demonstrated throughout the history that they do whatever it takes to deal with whatever issue, even though if they are not associated with causing that issue. We dealt with the oversupply glut, which we didn't create, and we dealt with it to the point that we got rid of it. And everyone was skeptical that we would not hold together this deal, and even those countries that joined us will not comply when the prices goes to $60. Everyone will cheat and all of that. It's not happening. So I think I have the confidence, as I told you, unilaterally, I cannot tell you what's going to be the decision. We need to discuss it. But I have confidence on the group that they will do the right thing and will do whatever we can to balance the market. And again, geopolitics is something that is out of our control. We're not a political organization. We're a commercial organization. And the stability and the prosperity of the world economy is in our interest. The prosperity of our customers is in our interest. If they cannot afford, then we will have a problem. If they cannot afford the price, then we will have a problem. And I think that is well understood by us. And I've been talking about investing for the past 2 years, and I've been criticized that why you're talking about investment. No one is concerned about investments. Everyone is now crying for the prices. And this is what I warned about 2 years ago. Is what I see today happening. People did not invest for 3-4 years in a commodity that you lose 5% every year. Good luck when your production is 100 million, you're going to lose 5 million. So that's, I think, where the issue is. And fortunately, we have in UAE a spare capacity. Saudi Arabia have spare capacity. Russia have some spare capacity. So some of the countries invested and have some spare capacity. But others lost that spare capacity because they did not continue investing in their system.
Because one of the troubles is that because of the low oil prices, what you've seen is a huge destruction of capital investment into the sector. So of course so that actually has an effect on the ability of a number of oil producers simply to sustain their production over time, which again obviously will have a knock-on effect on the oil price.
Of course, and this is something that at least the Gulf states have been doing since long time, and we've been continuing to have that buffer between our production, our actual production, and the production capacity. And in UAE, we have spent money on investments to raise the capacity from the 3 million barrels, which was our production before we reduced it, to the 3.5 million barrels. Saudi Arabia have done that earlier, and Kuwait, they have some buffer as well. But other countries have buffers as well. But I think it's that collective investments that is needed to adjust when you have a geopolitical problem, you have a sanction, or you have something that you did not plan for, and it could happen.
Yeah, because of course one of the concerns must be also is that because of changes in the energy sector, cheaper renewables, the prospect of electric vehicles coming on stream in the 2020s, it must be a difficult calculation of how much capital expenditure do I want to put into the fields with the prospect of alternatives to particularly mobile electricity in EVs coming on stream sometime after 2020. I was chairing a session earlier today, and we were talking about the prospect by 2040, this is Bloomberg Finance, estimating that 530 million electric vehicles will be on the roads. And that may well be an underestimate. So it is actually a tricky consideration.
Well, I think, first of all, the world is expanding and increasing in terms of number of human beings. We're living longer, and fortunately living longer, and we are getting more babies and more children are coming. So 2 billion people are going to come. Currently, there are, 1.3 billion cars. So if in 2040 you get a 500,000 or 500 million cars, EV, what is going to be the total number of cars out of that? So are those people going to drive or not? And I think this is, I don't believe that one form of energy is going to substitute the other. I think yes, EV is going to evolve, but it's not going to replace the demand on hydrocarbon. And again, the hydrocarbon is flexible. You can use those molecules to create many things. Our clothes today are made of hydrocarbon, and our cars and EVs. Now, how much of the EV is made of hydrocarbon? You ask yourself that question. The conventional car is less, but the EV is more. So they are going to use that oil to create more cars, of course, and you will use the oil to create those cars. So I think I'm not worried about that, to tell you the truth. I'm more worried about the shorter term supply. We need to have a reasonable supply to meet the demand that is coming. And the demand last year and this year is 1.6 last year, and this year is with the expectation 1.8 and maybe more, I don't know.
Well, one of the other interesting questions is the extent to which the US shale oil industry will actually play a greater role. We had a discussion earlier, and I was being told that I was overestimating the potential of the US shale, but I think the audience might be interested in what you may think of this.
I think if you look today at the system in the US, first of all, I don't see, and I've been saying this for a long time, I don't see the shale oil as a competitor. I see them as a complementing factor. And I think if it wasn't for the shale oil today, the prices would have been maybe $200, and many people will not be able to afford it. So shale oil have helped in that balance, and shale oil alone cannot solve the problem or the demand increase. And alone, the conventional producers cannot solve the demand increase. I think you need both. There is a healthy demand increase, and there is that reservoir factor that many of the people are not accounting for. Soon we will be producing on a daily basis 100 million barrels. If you apply the 5% that I told you about, then you need 5 million every year. So you need Saudi Arabia every 2 years.
It's a lot of oil.
So who is replacing that in addition to the demand? If you combine the two, you would need significant investments in this commodity. At the same time, you need the shale oil production to come. But there are, as we speak, I think until end of next year, there are some constraints and bottlenecks in the system.
Mm-hmm. And of course, one of the other difficulties, I suppose, is in relation to Russia. Because of the sanctions imposed by the US and the EU, Russia's capacity to maximize its production from its resource base is limited because they don't have, they've got huge shale oil fields they can't easily develop, and they have less access to their offshore. So I suppose the Russians are in of course, they've got huge reservoirs of oil they're developing at the moment, but in terms of maintaining the next level of fields and investing in them, that's much more difficult. Also, they have difficult access to external finance as well.
I don't know. I'm not expert in Russia, but I can tell you that Russia have been. I would commend their stewardship, being with us in the deal. I think they have helped us, and they've been consistent with us. I have seen as well some investors moving to Russia and investing in the sector. So it depends, and I think it depends on who is offering the best deals when it comes to the commercial terms. Now countries are changing their mind. We have seen Mexico, for example, opening up acreage, and I think that's a positive. That's a positive sign for Mexico. So there is that competition when it comes to the investors where to invest. And yes, sanctions is one, but it's limiting. But I think Russia have dealt with the sanctions for a long time, so
yeah,
maybe they are experts.
Yeah, probably. So I suppose the other, because we're getting towards the end, but what I would just say is that I suppose UAE has also, I understand, been investing a lot in Europe itself. There's been quite a lot of developments which you've been engaged in here. And can you say a little more about that, perhaps?
Yeah, of course. We are a major investor in Europe, and we are proud of this partnership model that we have built with Europe. Around 20,000 people from the companies that we are either partially owned or wholly owned are the employees, the European employees. And we are very proud of their creativity. The R&D centers in some of those companies are competing worldwide, and can give you examples. Mubadala owns 74% of Borealis, and almost 25%, 24.9% of OMV of Austria. They own also 100% of Cepsa out of Spain, and Global Foundries, which is a semiconductor business, not in the energy side, but it's considered the largest employer in Dresden, Germany. So all of those investments and creativity is enabled by the partnership between the Europeans and United Arab Emirates, and we are proud now some of these factories are targeting China and targeting some of the major markets. We have an R&D center in Beijing, and in Shanghai, and we have one in Abu Dhabi for Borealis, and they are bringing the next generation of technology. So yes, we are investor, and we are growing our investments.
And it's an interesting mix of investments, isn't it? It's not sort of restrained to one particular area. Now, I'm conscious of the fact we're keeping everybody from their coffee. So before I finish, I just need to, I have two small housekeeping announcements. One is that you've got alternatives from about 6:30. One is on blockchain. I personally feel blockchain is another early 21st century fantasy, but if you think it's a good idea, there's a session in the Maria Teresa room here, or you've got Digital Energy Revolution, which I suspect is much more worthwhile, and that's in the Hasberg room. So they're from about 6:30. I would like to thank the Minister for your putting up with my terrible questions, and also to the audience for also putting up with my terrible questions and listening to the Minister's much better answers to my questions. Thank you very much, Minister, and let's thank the Minister in the usual way. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.